Blood cells are there? No, the blood cells are not there. Why the blood cells are not there? The same concept. क्योंकि ये जो सारे pores हैं in the blood capillary, the RBCs will get stuck. RBC कभी भी निकल के नहीं आता. अब WBC निकल के आएगा? थोड़ा थोड़ा by chance. But ये अगर टिश्यू के आसपास कोई infected site में होता, then large number of WBCs would have come out. But यहाँ पे तो कोई infection नहीं है. So that's the reason WBCs on their own, they will not move, squeeze and come out. They will not do that. By chance, 2-4 RBC, WBC आ गया, that's a different thing. But generally, WBC also will not be there much in large numbers. It will not be there in large numbers. So what is this fluid now known as formed after ultrafiltration? Glomerular filtrate. Glomerular filtrate का composition क्या रहता है? Roughly, to talk about the composition of the glomerular filtrate is a large amount of water, some sodium, some glucose. What about urea? Traces of urea, huge amount of water. So this is what I'm trying to tell you, that what now next happens. Try understanding. This is the glomerular filtrate now, which is moving down the entire region of the tubule. The glomerular filtrate is running down. But surrounding the tubular portion, what is there? What is there? Look at the diagram. Surrounding the tubular portion, what is there? Blood capillaries. Blood capillaries. Surrounding the tubular portion, what is there? Blood capillaries, yes or no? A whole lot of blood capillaries. So ये blood capillaries कहाँ से आया? By the breakdown of efferent arteriole. So this is what I am showing you. Let us try understanding tubular part of the nephron और उसके surrounding blood capillaries में किस तरह का exchange of substances हो रहा है. So now I talk about, this is the ये जो vessel है. What is this vessel? I am talking about the efferent arteriole. And what is this? I am talking about a part of the blood capillary. I am talking about one blood capillary, say suppose. Now, here, after the process of ultrafiltration, we have got the glomerular filtrate. Glomerular filtrate running down the tubular part of the nephron. Now that it runs down the tubular part of the nephron, a whole lot of exchange of substances take place. अभी roughly I want to understand ये जो PCT और blood capillary के बीच में क्या होता है, leukophili and blood capillary के बीच में क्या होता है, and DCT and blood capillary के बीच में क्या हो रहा है. This is roughly we are trying to understand. अब जब ये glomerular filtrate running down, if I talk about the blood now here, try understanding what I'm speaking. I'm saying that ये जो blood यहाँ से आया by the way of the efferent arteriole, filtration हो गया, and during the process of ultrafiltration, this fluid is now maximally water, or say the plasma. This fluid is maximally water. So now the glomerular filtrate contains a huge amount of water. How much of the glomerular filtrate is produced per day? 24 hours में 160 liters of glomerular filtrate हर दिन में प्रोड्यूस होता है. इससे ज्यादा भी हो सकता है. 160 to 180 में से 160 to 180 liters of glomerular filtrate. But roughly हमारे बॉडी में ब्लड कितना होता है? 6 to 7 liters, 5 to 6 liters actually. So when I say 5 to 6 liters तो blood ही है. तो 160 liter कैसे हो गया? Because we are talking about ये जो 6 liters of blood हमारे body में है, this 6 liters of blood undergoes filtration at the glomerulus or inside the nephron more than 3 to 350 times a day. So ये 160 liters इसीलिए होता है because 350 times per day filtration होता है, that's why. ये जो 6 liters of blood undergoes filtration not only once or twice but almost about 350 to 400 times a day, and every time a small amount of glomerular filtrate formed. Composition of the glomerular filtrate, remember. अब अगर by the process of ultrafiltration, ultrafiltration is throwing away giving rise to glomerular filtrate which contains a huge amount of water, salts, ions, etc. मतलब ये जो blood यहाँ से आके जो इस तरफ जा रहा है, this blood had more of water and this blood has much lesser. अब ये जो blood है इसमें concentration of water, salts, ions, glucose जो भी था, all had almost come down here. कौन-कौन से substances आया नहीं है will all remain here in the blood, yes or no? So now if I compare this way, the blood here is more dilute and the blood here is thick. Is that correct? The blood in the efferent arteriole has a lot of water. Blood in the efferent arteriole is thick. सही है? क्यों? Because as a result of ultrafiltration, it has already given away so much of water. Ultrafiltration जब हुआ, almost about 95 to 98% plasma तो निकल के आ गया. So what is now left in the efferent arteriole? The cells, proteins, and थोड़ा सा water. So I can also say this way that अब जो ये blood efferent arteriole में है, it is very thick because it has lost so much of its water during filtration. So remember, the blood in the efferent arteriole is watery or in a fluid state, and the blood in the efferent arteriole is always thick. Give a reason. Why? What is the reason? Because of the process of ultrafiltration. Ultrafiltration में 95 to 98% plasma filter हो जाता है. Then no, खाली तो water नहीं आ रहा है. It's a whole lot of ions and salts सब कुछ आता है. So now the plasma or now the glomerular filtrate runs down. Now that it runs down, I would say that the blood has a whole lot of proteins left. The blood water ज़्यादा है. No, the blood has just little bit of water. What about the sodium and what about the glucose? Glucose and sodium भी बहुत कम है. When I write in red means the composition is very less. But what is more here in the blood? What is more here? A whole lot of urea and uric acid is still there. A whole lot of urea, uric acid is still there. क्यों? क्योंकि glomerular filtrate में तो traces ही निकल के आया है. For certain reason, कोई particular reason की वजह से the urea molecules did not come out through the walls of the glomerular capillaries. So glomerular filtrate में concentration of urea ज़्यादा है कि कम है? कम है. That's the reason we cannot say the glomerular filtrate को हम इसको urine क्यों नहीं कहते? Because it does not have a high concentration of urea. अगर इसमें high concentration of urea होता, then this process would have been sufficient for the process of filtration of the blood. आ रहा है समझ में? So now we have already studied what is ultrafiltration or ultrafiltration के associated. What are the other concepts to understand? As a result of ultrafiltration, the blood which is running in the capillaries nearby is all thick, has a lesser concentration of water, has a higher concentration of urea, uric acid. ये दो चीज खाली याद रखो. If that is so, now that I talk about the tubular part and the surrounding blood capillary, अब क्या होता है? In the second comparison is, अब जब ये fluid यहाँ पे pass हो रहा है and nearby the blood flowing here, the blood and there's a diffusion happening between the glomerular filtrate and the blood, and the water starts moving this side. The water starts moving this side. Can you tell me why? The water starts moving from the tubule to the blood because यहाँ पे water बहुत कम है and यहाँ पे water बहुत ज़्यादा है. Which process? Diffusion. Diffusion. Because यहाँ पे not only water, we'll be talking about all variety of salts. So now the water is constantly moving from the tubule towards the blood. The water is constantly moving from the tubule towards the blood. It is not only water, the sodium keeps moving, the glucose keeps moving. So in the first part of the tubule, if I'm talking about PCT, PCT में क्या हो रहा है? A whole lot of water, glucose, sodium constantly starts diffusing from the tubular region towards the blood capillary. कौन सा process? Diffusion, simple diffusion, movement of molecules and ions from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. अभी यहाँ पे not only water less, अभी थोड़ा थोड़ा water concentration बढ़ रहा है. अभी blood में water concentration धीरे धीरे बढ़ रहा है. अभी whatever amount of sodium पहले बहुत कम था, now the sodium is also increasing little bit. But urea अभी भी बहुत सारा है. But why am I not telling you that अब अगर water and glucose यहाँ से यहाँ तक जाता है, can I also tell you that urea is moving from here to here? No, but ये process यहाँ पे नहीं हो रहा है. ये process यहाँ पे नहीं हो रहा है क्योंकि when I talk about the PCT, though in the surrounding blood capillary, the blood has a very high concentration of urea, but urea does not diffuse from blood to PCT. Neither the urea diffuses from the blood capillary to the loop of Henle because the membranes of the loop of Henle and the membranes of the PCT are impermeable to these ions. Semi-permeable याद है? Semi-permeable का क्या मतलब था? It allows membrane which allows movement of certain substances and does not allow the movement of some. So why can't I say that ये जो urea है surrounding blood capillary में urea भी निकल के why is the urea not getting diffused here? Why is the urea from the blood not getting diffused into the loop of Henle? क्योंकि the membrane of the loop of Henle and the membrane of the PCT is impermeable, मतलब do not allow transport. तो अदर साइड में concentration ज्यादा है. आया समझ में? मतलब अभी भी when I am comparing loop of Henle or surrounding blood, when I compare the loop of Henle and surrounding blood, कहाँ पे urea ज्यादा है? यहाँ पे. Okay, what I told you, glomerular filtrate, when it starts flowing down, glomerular filtrate has got a huge amount of water, salt, glucose, and since here water, salt, glucose is much more than the surrounding blood vessel, all the water, all the sodium, all the glucose starts diffusing towards the other side. And what is this process? This process is what is known as selective reabsorption. Selective reabsorption का मतलब क्या है? The tubule allows movement of certain molecules. Basically diffusion. Diffusion of certain molecules are happening from the tubule towards the blood. What is selective reabsorption? Diffusion of certain molecules happen from the tubule towards the blood. Which substances? Majorly the water, majorly sodium, glucose. ये सारे जो components है tubule में ज़्यादा है, nearby blood में कम है. So straight away they undergo diffusion, and this is what is known as selective reabsorption. When this fluid is coming down, still abhi bhi a whole lot of water is remaining in the tubule. Which part? Loop of Henle. So that's the reason the water reabsorption still continues. The water reabsorption abhi bhi ho raha hai. So by the time I talk about the fluid is in the loop of Henle, जब तक यहाँ पे आ रहा है, what is the situation? In the nearby blood vessel, there is now a whole lot of urea already there. अब काफी सारा water भी आ चुका है, sodium भी काफी सारा है in the blood. Remember, this is the blood capillary I am talking about. अभी काफी सारा sodium भी आ चुका है, glucose भी आ चुका है. But now, when I talk about the urea, now what will happen to the urea? Now what will happen to the urea? The urea is already in a very high concentration. Here, when I talk about in this blood capillary surrounding the DCT, since the urea and the uric acid concentration is much high, now the diffusion of the urea will take place, and now the diffusion of the uric acid will take place. You are a 15-year-old boy. I want to respect you. But see that if you are not able to respect yourself, the next step is call your parent and detain you for 3 lectures. If you are happy with it, I will do it. Because sit here and understand nothing, shame for me. You have no shame, but this is shame for me. After teaching so many batches, a student right sitting in the front bench, absolutely blank. Yes. यहाँ तक आया समझ में? Again, I will tell you the last part. बोलो, पूछो.
So the blood does not get transferred.
Blood नहीं, blood के components का diffusion हो रहा है. The blood cells are not moving. Cells तो कभी diffuse नहीं हो सकेगा. The cells are as it is there. We are not talking about the blood cells right now. We are only talking about the components. So PCT में मैंने क्या बोला? A whole lot of water, salts, glucose diffusing. कहाँ से कहाँ तक? PCT से blood. So अभी धीरे धीरे blood का composition change हो रहा है. यूरिया तो पहले से ही था, but sodium का concentration increase हुआ, water का concentration increase हुआ. What about here in the loop of Henle? Yes, in the loop of Henle also the water concentration has increased, the sodium concentration has increased. So now roughly if I talk about that, now parallelly when I have to talk about the DCT and the nearby blood vessel, the concentration of the ions and the nitrogenous base substances is something like this. There's a huge amount of water given to the blood. The sodium is given to the blood. The glucose is given to the blood. Then what about the urea and the uric acid now? The urea and the uric acid getting transferred from the blood to the DCT. जो यहाँ पे नहीं हो रहा था, जो यहाँ पे नहीं हो रहा था, but यहाँ पे हो रहा है. Why? What is the reason? Because the membranes of the DCT, they are permeable. The membranes of the DCT are permeable to urea or uric acid. Is this clear? So when I talk about the membranes of the DCT can pick up the urea and the uric acid. I'll come to you. So now, what is the comparison? Try understanding PCT में खाली what type of diffusion can happen? The water, glucose, sodium can move from the tubule towards the blood. In the loop of Henle, majorly what are you supposed to remember? Diffusion of a whole lot of water from the tubule towards the blood. In the DCT, now what is happening? In the DCT, by the time the fluid has come down to DCT, the amount of the water left in the tubule is quite less. By the time the fluid has come down to the DCT, the amount of the water is quite less because almost about 98% of the water given back to the blood. By the time the fluid has come down to the DCT, the amount of the sodium quite less, the amount of the glucose quite less. Then what is more now in the DCT is a whole lot of urea and uric acid. So ये जो composition है, इसको बोलेंगे urine because the composition of water, salts, ions, proteins बहुत कम है. And these were substances जो blood में चला गया है by the process of reabsorption. और ये जो process है, by the way that the membranes of the PCT have picked up the urea and the uric acid, this process is known as tubular secretion. तो what did you understand? तो अभी difference क्या है? Reabsorption and secretion में difference क्या है?
ग्लूकोज इससे जाता है तो वापस नहीं आ सकता.
ये concentration पे depend करेगा. When I talk about the glucose concentration blood में, the concentration in the glucose is always to be maintained. Optimum concentration रहेगा. But the glucose blood में तो concentration हमेशा ज़्यादा नहीं रहेगा because the blood will always give it back to the tissues. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि blood is having a high concentration of glucose तो ये फिर से वापस आ जाएगा. Not that. यहाँ पे तो glucose is getting back from the tubule से जा तो रहा है, but from the blood again the glucose will enter into the tissue cells, no? तो यहाँ पे concentration तो ज़्यादा maintain तो नहीं रह रहा है. If it is maintained high for a long time, then only it can give back. तो ये process तो नहीं हो रहा है. So when I talk about PCT, the transfer, is this clear? What type of substances are getting transferred? Water, glucose, sodium. I am talking about only the major few ions and molecules, remember? So sodium, glucose, water, huge amount of water goes back. I am talking about in the loop of Henle में majorly क्या हो रहा है? a huge amount of water, salts, ions, again going back to the blood. तो ये जो process हो रहा है majorly in the PCT and the LUPA family is because of a hormone, and this hormone is known as ADH. You will learn the role of ADH in the next chapter also. What is ADH known as? ADH is known as antidiuretic hormone. What is ADH known as? ADH is known as antidiuretic hormone, and this antidiuretic hormone is responsible for this entire process of reabsorption. You should have asked me that तो इतना सारा reabsorption का जरूरत क्या है? Why so much of reabsorption to take place? This reabsorption has to take place so that the volume and the composition of the blood is maintained. Check here, 160 liters of glomerular filtrate. So much produced per day. Can our body afford to lose this? इतना सारा fluid जो हमारे body में पहले तो इतना सारा fluid जो बन रहा है, it's not only at one particular period of time, it's over the day. और इतना अगर हमारे body से lose होता है, then we will immediately collapse. The blood is becoming thick. I told you here the blood is thick. So immediately within few minutes, the volume of the blood and the composition of the blood को retain करना बहुत जरूरी है. So why the process reabsorption? Why does this process reabsorption take place? To maintain the composition of the blood and to revive the amount of the blood. क्योंकि already I mentioned the blood here is excessively thick. The blood here is excessively thick. तो ये जो thick blood है, composition जो पूरा disturb हो जाता है after the process of ultrafiltration, इसको within few minutes ये process blood composition and blood volume को revive करता है, and that is the reason selective reabsorption. Which hormone helps us in this process? ADH. So अगर किसी के body में ADH बहुत कम रहेगा, deficiency रहेगी, the person will suffer from a condition, and this is known as diabetes insipidus. This is known as diabetes insipidus. इसमें क्या होगा? What will be one of the major symptoms that the person will suffer from? Frequent urination. On an average, roughly, we all normal individuals, how much of the urine our body can release? Nothing much than 1.5 to 2 liters per day. ये normal है. Can you think 160 liters जो हर दिन में बन रहा है, उसमें से खाली 2 liters ही our body can afford to lose. How much of the reabsorption is happening? Almost about 98% reabsorption. 98% of the fluid and the ions का reabsorption होना क्यों जरूरी है? To maintain the volume and the composition of the blood. So which is this process which brings about the maintenance of the volume and the composition of the blood? Reabsorption, selective reabsorption. तो selective reabsorption और secretion दोनों में अलग क्या है? What is the difference between these two processes? Reabsorption में essential substances tubule से blood में जा रहा है, and secretion में toxic substances blood से tubule में आ रहा है. Understanding? So after all these processes done, ultimately the fluid will be thrown where? Ultimately the fluid will come down from the BCT into the collecting duct. What is this particular part of the tube known as? Collecting duct. We had already named it earlier. This particular tube is known as the collecting duct. So what is now present? The fluid which is present here only will have a small amount of water. What will be there maximally? Traces of sodium can be there, glucose can be there, but majorly it should have a huge amount of urea and uric acid. What is urea and uric acid? Also known as nitrogenous base. Where is urea formed in our body, Rajdev? Super. It's in the liver. So when we are talking about, you are not attentive. That's why मैंने तुमको ये पूछा है. So now that we are talking about where is the urea formed in the body, कैसे urea form होता है? I had explained you in the previous class. लिवर सेल्स में कौन से कंपोनेंट से यूरिया फॉर्म होता है? नहीं. Which type of simplest form of the nutrient liver में break होके यूरिया बनता है? Amino acids. Do you remember the other day we discussed लिवर को एक्सक्रीटरी ऑर्गन कैसे बोला जा सकता है? नंबर वन, द लिवर कैन ब्रेक डाउन द हीमोग्लोबिन and also the liver can break down the amino acids to give rise to the urea. So majorly now we are talking about the urea. Understood these three processes? What is the basic difference? I told you reabsorption and secretion. Secretion में essential toxic substances are moving from blood to tubule, मतलब blood to DCT यहाँ पे. And reabsorption, what did we learn? Reabsorption में क्या हो रहा है?
The essential nutrients which are required by the blood, they are getting transferred from tubule to tubule.
Super. They are moving from the tubular region. Which are the major tubular regions you are understanding? PCT and lupofan. तो reabsorption कौन से? हवा खाना है? Pressure चाहिए. Listen, जो मैंने अभी इसको बोला थोड़ा देर पहले. After so many years of teaching and batches, इतने सारे batches देखने के बाद एक स्टूडेंट की तरफ देख के हमें इजीली समझ में आ जाता है वो स्टूडेंट को समझ आ रहा है नहीं आ रहा है, वो स्टूडेंट कंसंट्रेट कर रहा है नहीं कर रहा है. एंड दिस नॉनसेंस दैट यू से मैंने तो कुछ नहीं बोला, मैंने तो कुछ कहा ही नहीं, ये अगर बिहेवियर तुम्हारा है, रिमेंबर यू आर फूलिंग योरसेल्फ. Right at this moment, it is my duty to tell you, rest is your choice. So now, when we are talking about the processes, what type of questions? The entire, yes sir.
Ma'am, I have two doubts.
देखो इसमें क्या समझ में नहीं आया? I give you 5 minutes before I give you some questions.
मैम तो आपने बोला कि यूरिया सिर्फ डीसीटी में ही जा सकता है अपने ट्यूब्यूल में
Diffusion.
हाँ डिफ्यूजन के प्रोसेस के थ्रू. तो क्या ऐसे कि डीसीटी का जो मेम्ब्रेन है वो फ्रीली परमिएबल है?
फ्रीली कैसे? When we are talking about the membrane of the DCT अगर freely permeable होगा तो सारे substances फिर से आ जाते हैं. सारे substances नहीं आ रहा है. तो every particular membrane हमारे body में ये जो tubular structures है, every tubular region में एक पर्टिकुलर मेम्ब्रेन कुछ तरह के आयंस को सपोर्ट करता है ट्रांसपोर्ट, कुछ तरह के मॉलिक्यूल्स को नहीं करता. इट्स ऑल ओवर द बॉडी. Whether you talk about the intestinal villi or you talk about the blood capillaries or you talk about the kidney tubules. ये जो kidney tubule में मैंने ये फीचर एक्सप्लेन की, this फीचर की वजह से in the नहीं तो यूरिया from here to here would have come. पर PCT में कभी भी concentration of urea ज़्यादा रहता ही नहीं है. In the lupo family, uric acid का concentration कभी भी ज़्यादा नहीं रहता है because these walls does not allow movement of urea, transport of urea. But ये जो DCT का wall है, that can allow the movement. ये movement को allow करता है, luckily allow करता है. नहीं तो blood में से urea निकालना, maybe our body would have found a different method altogether. So our body is made up in such a way. सेम ट्यूब है, एक जगह पे ट्रांसपोर्ट पॉसिबल ही नहीं है एंड एक और जगह पे ट्रांसपोर्ट पॉसिबल है. सो आई वुड से दिस इज नॉट फ्रीली परमिएबल बट सिलेक्टिवली परमिएबल हम कह सकते हैं, स्पेशली फॉर यूरिया. एंड आई हैव मेंशन ओनली वन और टू बट देयर आर मेनी अदर सब्सटेंसेस. लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल इसमें हम और भी काफी सारे कंपोनेंट्स आई कुड हैव मेंशन लाइक द पोटेशियम आयंस. Potassium ions is also something which straight away goes from here to here. We also mention about certain components known as drugs and poisons. वो भी लिखा जाता है. But drugs and poisons, not the cocaine and the heroin I'm talking about. Drugs and poisons मतलब वो जो components of the medicine, preservatives जो खाने के साथ हमारे body में जाता है, that also has to get expelled out from the blood to DCT होके ही blood से body से release होता है. So there are many different type of components जो ऐसे release होकर ultimately now they are in the collecting duct. Anybody?
मैम आपने बोला कि 160 लीटर्स पर डे फॉर्म होता है.
इससे भी ज्यादा 180 तक भी हो सकता है.
180 तक भी हो सकता है. लेकिन हमारी बॉडी सिर्फ 1.5 से 2 लीटर उस पे एक्सपेल आउट कर
सकती है.
कैन बाकी का क्या?
बाकी का क्या होगा, मतलब पूरा रामायण के बाद तुम पूछ लो राम कहाँ है। तो इसीलिए तो ये पूरा तो 98% तो पूरा रिएब्सॉर्ब हो गया। देखो, दिस इज व्हाई आई एम येलिंग विद दिस बैच, दिस इज व्हाई आई एम येलिंग विद
ओके,
दिस
तो
बैच।
मुझे लगा कि प्रोसेस के बाद 160 लीटर।
Is this understood what I told you? अब नहीं समझ में आया मिस्टर गुफरान? हाँ, ये जो 160-180 लीटर्स, ये तो यहाँ की बात है। अब यहाँ से यहाँ तक आते आते 95-98% ब्लड में चला गया। But why? I also mentioned why. क्या लिखना है?
To maintain the balance.
To maintain the volume and the composition. Volume जो 6 liters volume कैसे maintain होता ब्लड में? अगर ये reabsorption नहीं होता तो ब्लड तो एकदम थिक हो जाता है and we would have collapsed. एक बार extrusion हुआ and then finished. So now when we are talking about this particular process, ये जो पूरा reabsorption हुआ है in the PCT and the Lupa family, तभी तो जाके पूरा 95-98% fluids आ चुका ब्लड में फिर से। What is expelled out is only that 1.5 to 2 liters, maximum 3 liters. उससे ज़्यादा it is an abnormal condition. Now, how much of the water should we drink? Again, under all normal conditions, how much of the water should we drink? Oh, 8 liters. Wow, 8 liters. तब तो hospital में
3 to 4 liters.
Nothing more than 3 liters. Now, when we are talking about under normal condition, and that also with age, you will always understand clinically when we talk about, if I talk about a person, now say suppose for you all, till the age of 40, 45, 3 liters, 3.5 liters maximum our kidneys can manage. Manage मतलब क्या? इतना सारा पानी जो हम पी रहे हैं, the kidney also should be able to do the filtration very fast, no? When we talk about a person 65-70 years, उसको 3.5 liters water अगर दिया जाएगा, the kidney will in fact start improperly functioning. The proper function नहीं होगा. It is not only that ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा पानी पियो and clear out. No, the organs, as in when I talk about the kidney of a 15-year-old, 35-year-old, 75-year-old, वो kidney as it is functional रहेगा till the age 75? No. So the amount of water at the age of 15 and 35 and 75 also cannot be the same. So when I'm talking about a person, you'll always hear that even doctors also, clinically also, they would always advise if a person 75 years or 65, 70, the amount of water they will always say not more than 2 liters at all. 2 liters enough to flush away all the toxins of the body. But if that person is not drinking 3.5 liters, no, he will rather suffer from swelling of the body, accumulation of fluids, and so many other problems. So that is all to relate, of course, related with our age, the efficiency of the organ, which with age decreases. No, efficiency of every organ of our body with age decreases. So accordingly, we have to handle. Is this clear? Now here, what are some of the major questions that you'll have to understand? What are the steps? What are the processes which is involved? Name the processes involved in the process of filtration of the blood, urine formation. The same, whether I talk about filtration of the blood or urine formation is one and the same thing. So what are the processes? Now the 3 processes you have to name this way. Ultrafiltration एक हो गया, selective reabsorption एक हो गया, tubular secretion ये हो गया name of the process. Ultrafiltration, based on that I already gave you 2-3 questions. What is meant by ultrafiltration? ये process हो कहाँ पे रहा है? This particular process is happening in the glomerulus. As a result of ultrafiltration, क्या बनता है? Glomerular filtrate. The glomerular filtrate and the urine. Glomerular filtrate cannot be termed as urine. Why?
Because it has a very less amount of
Urea and uric acid. So now when I talk about why the glomerular, इसको हम urine क्यों नहीं बोल सकते? Filtration तो हुआ ही है. Filtration तो हो गया. अब एक बार filtration के बाद why this is not considered urine? क्योंकि glomerular filtrate has got a very low concentration of urea, uric acid. Which vessel? The renal artery now. Now you should be able to understand. Renal artery, yeah, renal vein has a higher concentration of urea. Renal artery or renal vein has a higher concentration of urea? Renal artery. ये सारे कैपिलरीज मतलब these particular कैपिलरी जो फिल्ट्रेशन होने के बाद ट्यूब्यूलर सिक्रेशन के बाद या ये सारे कैपिलरीज यूनाइट टू फॉर्म द रीनल वेन. तो रीनल वेन मतलब क्या? ये सारे कैपिलरीज जब नेफ्रॉन के मतलब नेफ्रॉन it is these capillaries are leaving the nephron now. These capillaries are leaving the nephron now, then they join to form the renal vein. तो ये वाले वेसल में यूरिया कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ज्यादा है कि कम है? ज्यादा है कि कम है? रीनल कम है क्योंकि ये फिल्ट्रेशन के बाद है ना. रीनल वेन तो ये सारे कैपिलरीज जब फिल्ट्रेशन हो चुका, रीएब्जॉर्प्शन हो चुका, सिक्रीशन हो चुका, उसके बाद these capillaries are coming and joining to form the renal vein. Always remember what is the difference. Renal artery, because it is bringing the blood to the nephron. This particular vessel will always have a high concentration of urea, and this particular vessel will always have a lesser concentration of urea. Efferent arteriole is broad or efferent arteriole is broad? Efferent. You get questions. What is the reason for the ultrafiltration in the glomerulus? State one reason, one particular reason for the pressure developed in the glomerulus. क्या लिखना है? Of uneven diameter of
Efferent arteriole and
efferent arteriole. ये लिखना है हमेशा. Efferent बहुत broad है, efferent narrow है. What is which hormone? The same concept again in control coordination you will study. Which hormone brings about reabsorption? ADH. What is the full form? You have to remember. If a person suffers anti-diuretic hormone, if a person suffers from deficiency of this hormone, what type of a condition he suffers from? Insipidus, diabetes insipidus. तो diabetes insipidus में बहुत सारे symptoms होते हैं. One of the most common symptom is frequent urination. This person is releasing out almost about 5 to 6 liters of urine, and even more. So 5 to 6 liters of urine. What will be the condition of this individual? This particular individual will be extremely lethargic. This particular individual will be extremely lack of energy always. So much of water drained out.
as you said, a normal person using about 1.5 to 2 liters a day of urine. What if it's less than that?
Less than that also is not good. Less than that, less than 500 ml if I talk about. Under all clinical conditions, 500 ml के नीचे अगर है, that means it talks about some improper or some abnormalities in the kidney. The person is drinking very well 2 to 3 liters of water, but the kidney, that means, is not able to function properly. Now, if the kidney is not able to function properly, then what? The kidney is not able to function properly, then artificial filtration has to be taken out. And this artificial filtration is what we are talking about as dialysis. So the person is very well consuming 2 to 3 liters of water, but filtration nahi ho raha. There's a problem in the kidney, and many other problems a person is facing. Then it is understood that ये जो reabsorption है, secretion है, ultrafiltration है, these processes are not happening, and that's the reason the release of the urine under, even though the person is drinking adequate amount of water, the release is only lesser than 500 ml. We'll talk about dialysis. Let us take a few questions on it. अरे super. Sorry, ना भी question भी पूछने लगा, बोलो. Yes. When we talk.
No.
कुछ नहीं हुआ. Now, when we are talking about dialysis, when dialysis, a person, even when a person can very well survive on one kidney also. But when both the kidneys are there, we don't have to follow a whole lot of precautionary measures. कभी 1 लीटर पानी पिया, कभी 3 लीटर पिया, एक दिन मतलब 1 लीटर से भी कम पिया तो भी मैनेज हो जाता है, not a problem. But if a person is surviving on one kidney, the person has to follow a lot of precaution. इतना ही पानी पीना है, इतना type of the food that the person has to eat is also planned. That person has to take and then on top of that, a whole lot of sanitary hygiene he or she has to maintain. So a whole lot of different type of precaution the person has to maintain, which we may take it very casually. But then when dialysis, when at least one kidney is not functional by 40-50%. So when I'm talking about, not necessary that both the kidneys will become non-functional, then only the person goes for dialysis. No, there are many individuals today where one kidney is not working by 40%, 50%. The person may go for dialysis once a month, once 15 days, and that person is very normal. You will not even understand. There are many students going for school, colleges after dialysis. Every month, once or twice, they'll go for dialysis. Both the kidneys, maybe one particular kidney not functional at all, and the other kidney functional by 30% only, 40% only. Then also the person can survive on dialysis, but with many precautions. When is a person almost bedridden? When both the kidneys are not functional. Both the kidneys not functional, that means at that time it is possible that the person has to go for dialysis every alternate day. नहीं, ऐसे भी people may survive for a long time. ऐसे भी people may survive for a long time, go for dialysis 3 to 4 days. But if the person has other different type of ailments, other different heart condition खराब है, high blood pressure hai, this, so many other things, then of course the body may not support. The kidney has a disorder, but other organs, other vital organs में ज़्यादा कुछ problem नहीं है. Many people are surviving on dialysis almost for 5 years, 6 years. चल रहा है. नहीं. If the kidney condition is there where artificial dialysis ही जरूरी है, the kidney cannot manage to bring about the filtration, either the person has to go for transplant करना है. हाँ, तो वो भी तो after 3 years उसको change करना है ना. Nothing. If the person goes for transplant, possible है कि it may be successful and the person may live for another 5 years without much of a problem. But transplant काफी बार successful नहीं होता है. That's the reason people opt for dialysis. Transplant एक बार होगा, as it is such a painful process, such an expensive process. वो होने के बाद also if the person is not getting any comfort, better है dialysis. But dialysis is also very painful. I'll show you what the process of dialysis happens or how does it happen. Let us take few questions on this part first. The first is, write down the first question. Ultrafiltration I already gave you. Name the hormone responsible for selective reabsorption. Write down the answer. Name the hormone responsible for selective reabsorption. Write it down. Name the hormone responsible for selective reabsorption. Write down. Name the hormone responsible for selective reabsorption. Name the hormone responsible for selective reabsorption. What is the answer you will write? ADH, bracket में full form भी लिखो, antidiuretic hormone. No. The moment the person starts taking chemo, it is understood that even if the other vital organs are functioning properly, the vital organs will start getting damaged because it is radiation. And this will start getting damaged. Now, right from the day the person is on chemo, the days are counted. A person may survive 2 months, a person may survive 2 years, 3 years. So that is as it is understood, now the vital organs. Now, at that stage, a person again going for dialysis is too much for a body to handle. Provided the person is quite young, 30, 35 years, still the body can handle it. Person is above 50, 55, 60, then difficult. As it is, doctors will not prescribe that dialysis. Because
how is the process of dialysis carried out?
I'll tell you. First, let us complete few questions, then we'll discuss on dialysis also a little bit. That is done. This is done. Next, number 2. What is the significance of selective reabsorption? What is the significance of selective reabsorption? What is the significance of selective reabsorption? What is the significance I told you? What is the significance of selective reabsorption? Right? What did I mention? Selective reabsorption क्यों होना है? अगर ये पूरा प्रोसेस, ये जो पूरा प्रोसेस है selective reabsorption जो यहाँ से यहाँ तक हुआ, इसमें what is the significance? All the essential substances went back to the blood. तो इससे फायदा हमें क्या हुआ? The volume and the composition of the blood is maintained. Only the non-essential substances got released out along with a small amount of water. Right?
Those drugs and the chemicals also get
The drugs and the chemicals, if I write here, they were already present in the blood. From the blood, they will run down into the DCT and get released out of the body, get dissolved in a small amount of water. Right down. Selective reabsorption means diffusion of. Selective reabsorption means diffusion of essential substances. Diffusion of essential substances. Diffusion of essential substances from the tubular part of the nephron towards the blood vessels. Towards the blood vessels. Full stop. This helps in.
From the tubular part of the nephron after.
From the tubular part of the nephron towards the blood vessels. Full stop. This THIS, this helps in maintaining the composition and this helps in maintaining the composition and the volume of the blood. This helps in maintaining the composition and the volume of the blood. This helps in maintaining the composition and the volume of the blood. Next question, one more question we will do. What is the difference between selective reabsorption? Difference between selective reabsorption and tubular secretion. What is the difference between selective reabsorption and tubular secretion? What is the difference between selective reabsorption and tubular secretion, right? You may make a table to write down. Tubular secretion and selective reabsorption के basic differences क्या है? You should know that. Make a table, write down selective reabsorption first. Selective reabsorption, write down. Diffusion of selective reabsorption के लिए लिखो. Diffusion of essential substances. Diffusion of essential substances. Diffusion of essential substances like diffusion of essential substances like water, sodium, sodium ions, water, sodium ions, glucose, etc. From the tubular part,
water, sodium ions,
glucose, etc. From the tubular part of the nephron, from the tubular part of the nephron, from the tubular part of the nephron to, क्या लिखना है? Diffusion of sodium, glucose, ions from the tubular part of the nephron to the large vessels, blood capillaries. तो ये अगर reabsorption है तो secretion के लिए क्या लिखेंगे?
blood capillaries to nephron tube.
Tubule, correct. Because for secretion you should write diffusion of harmful toxic substances, diffusion of harmful toxic substances, diffusion of harmful toxic substances from the harmful toxic substances like urea, uric acid, like urea, uric acid, like urea, uric acid from the blood towards the tubular part of the nephron. From the blood towards the tubular part of the nephron. That is the major difference, and this is the definition also that you can write down. What is
part of the nephron?
Tubular part of the nephron. Aya samajh mein what you wrote? This is the definition also that you can write. The first point is just the definition I majorly mentioned. अब location अगर लिखना है, second, where does these processes take place? The second difference, only that much you are supposed to learn. Second difference, I want to ask you, based on the location, reabsorption and secretion में अगर difference लिखना है, what will you write? Reabsorption कहाँ पे होता है? In which part of the tubule लिखना होता है? Which part of the tubule में reabsorption हो रहा है? PCT and loop of Henry. देखो, reabsorption under that paragraph you write takes place in the PCT and loop of Henry. Takes place in the PCT and loop of Henry. तो secretion क्या लिखेंगे? Takes place in the DCT. Takes place in the DCT. वैसे तो in your book there is this PCT, DCT is not mentioned. But अगर PCT, DCT you don't know, then mentioning these concepts in your answers become difficult. इसमें so that is the reason in your book they have only given you the tubular part of the nephron.
PCT, DCT नहीं लिखना.
You should write.
ऐसा क्वेश्चन नहीं है.
You should write.
ऐसा क्वेश्चन नहीं है.
ऐसे question आता है, but in your book they have not mentioned. So you can, if you are asked to write down the location, then generally as per your Bible, what are you supposed to write? You are supposed to write that the process of reabsorption happens in the upper part of the tubule. That you can write. Upper part of the tubule and secretion happens in the lower part of the tubule. So वो भी तुम लिख सकते हो. या तो upper part of the tubule is majorly the PCT and the loop of Henry. In some schools, teachers will teach you this parts. In DPS and all, it's always taught. Even Podar, I think they will teach you this parts. ये हो चुका है chapter class में. So, but in certain schools, they will just skip and jump and finish the chapter in 2 days. They will not teach you. So it is your choice now. We teach you absolutely as per the board. I will teach you absolutely as per the board. याद रखने के लिए पढ़ना पड़ेगा 4 बार. It is not any difficult thing that I am telling you जो याद ही नहीं रहे. 4 बार पढ़ोगे ऐसे ही याद रहेगा. So if you don't want to remember PCT, TCT, तो upper part, lower part लिखना पड़ेगा. That reabsorption takes place in the upper part of the tubule and DCT secretion takes place in the lower part of the tubule. ऐसे भी लिख सकते हैं. Clear है? Clear है? So this is about the three processes which leads to formation of the urine and filtration of the blood and the hormone also. You have to remember ADH क्या है? What is the role of ADH? What is the significance of reabsorption? That also you are asked. Now, the last concept that we try understanding is that what would happen in our body, in an individual's body, when the process of filtration of the blood cannot happen naturally. If the filtration of the blood cannot happen naturally, then this is what we come across, a concept known as hemodialysis. Hemo क्यों बोलते हैं? Because it is the filtration of the blood we are talking about. Hemo with the reference of blood. Hemodialysis, a concept where we understand the blood is filtered artificially. But ये जो concept है, artificial filtration of the blood. Artificial filtration of the blood, in the figure also you can see the blood is generally drawn into a set of tubes. So I am also drawing here just 1 or 2 tubes. सब ठीक है?
हाँ नीचे हाथ रखा तो उधर डस्ट
Now we are talking about this set of tubes. This few set of tubes here for dialysis, the mechanism is not there for you to understand. But just understand dialysis में क्या होता है. Here in dialysis also the process of filtration of blood is happening, but artificially. तो ये जो set of tubes होता है, see there in that diagram also you can see there is a large number of tubes here, a whole network of tubes होता है. इसको dialyzing unit बोला जाता है. There's a set of tubes in a network, and ये जो set of tubes है, this is placed on a saline solution. मतलब ये actually एक particular bag, बड़ा सा bag like structure में होता है. एक unit होता है, full एक unit होता है, and in that unit this set of tubes are there. तो ये set of tubes should be in contact with what? A fluid here. यहाँ पे एक fluid रहता है. So here I am talking about the dialyzing tubes, which you can very well see in that image also. And what is this solution? There's a solution surrounding. And what is this particular solution now? This is generally the saline solution. So this is also known as the dialyzing solution. The dialyzing solution. So when we are talking about the dialyzing solution, ये generally क्या होता है? Sodium solution generally होता है. The sodium chloride, generally the saline जो हमारे body में दिया जाता है when a person is sick.
Does the process of dialysis and the process which is carried out in the body take the same amount of time and the effect is also the same?
Of course not. When we are talking about dialysis takes place in 6 to 8 hours. 6 to 8 hours, and वो भी the entire process is done very, very slowly. But the process in a normal healthy individual, the process of filtration of the blood takes place in few minutes. तभी तो जाके 300-400 times हो सकता है. मैम 6 to 8 घंटे एक ही जगह लेटे रहते हैं. जंप कर रहा है. So now when we are talking about, it's a painful process, it's a very expensive process at the same time. Partial anesthesia दिया जाता है. Partial anesthesia रहता है. It's not full body anesthesia नहीं रहती है. So now just a basic concept होता क्या है during the concept of dialysis? These tubes through which the blood enters. Now blood कहाँ से ज़्यादातर लिया जाता है? From the hand, as it लिया. Partly unconscious जहाँ से tube से blood जा रहा है, there will be a lot of pain at this region. तो वो उसको local anesthesia दिया जाता है so that the person is not able to get the pain during that process. पूरा unconscious आजकल big surgeries में भी पूरा unconscious नहीं करते क्योंकि people love to go, आना नहीं चाहते. तो एक बार unconscious हो गया, काफी बार if the body condition is not very strong, people cannot take that high doses of anesthesia and they become unconscious and they enter into coma also. So इसीलिए today nowadays even for big surgeries also they don't give full anesthesia. You can see that the doctors are cutting your body parts, but you are only not able to feel that pain. कभी नहीं पढ़ा, कभी नहीं सुना ये. पढ़ो, वो तुम्हारे बाइबल के आगे पढ़ो. हाँ?
ज्यादा उधर में
हाँ?
जब पीछे की साइड कोई सर्जरी है तब मतलब
कुछ भी अगर ब्रेन का सर्जरी भी होता है तो भी लोकल एनेस्थेशिया देके करते हैं. आफ्टर 6 hours जब एनेस्थेशिया का इफेक्ट चला जाएगा then the person will understand the pain. numbness हो जाती है.
मतलब जब आपको पेन लाइक
फील ही नहीं होता. कोई तुम्हारे बॉडी में प्रिक करेगा तो you are able to understand the pain. So अब जब local anesthesia या part body anesthesia दिया जाता है, you are able to see that the doctors are cutting your body parts, they are showing you also. But at the same time तुमको pain feel ही नहीं हो रहा. You are not able to pain बाद में massive. After that massive, but nowadays you don't understand because immediately they give those painkillers. Painkillers बहुत देते हैं 2 days time. Immediately after the surgery is over, they start those painkillers. वो painkillers 2 दिन 3 दिन तक चलता है. So after 3 days, as it is, the healing starts in the body. So after 3 days, nowadays, even after the big surgery, the next day only the doctor will ask you get up and start walking. तुम लोग यहाँ पे बैठ के मस्ती करते हो. You don't even know how difficult the world is outside. अरे तुम बैग पैकिंग स्टार्ट कर दो. राजदीप बैग पैकिंग शुरू हो गया?
नहीं, ये बैग में चेक कराने वाला बैग से
नहीं नॉनसेंस और डायलिसिस लेके बैठे.
दर्द क्यों होता है आपको?
दर्द क्यों नहीं होगा? Because the part of the body is cut. Whole lot of nerves are injured, blood vessels are injured. You feel a small portion of the skin from your finger and check.
हम फ्रूटी पी रहे हैं.
देखो
बंद पड़ा है यहीं पे रखा है.
झूठ बोल रहे हैं.
देखते यार क्या चल रहा है. बंद
नहीं और भी कुछ पानी वानी दे दो उसे. He's tired, so tired, he is so hungry. Okay, now let us finish with this. We are talking about dialysis and the concept of dialysis. Spinal cord. Spinal cord में देते हैं, and if it is the big surgery, it is always on the spinal cord. The entire body or part of the body will become numb at that time. In a short 5 minutes में पूरा numbness आ जाएगा.
इंजेक्शन से वो दर्द होता है ना.
Oh my God.
मैंने देखा ना 2 जगह.
इंजेक्शन से डर लगता है.
नहीं ना दर्द होता है.
इंजेक्शन से कुछ भी नहीं है.
हाँ,
इंजेक्शन
दर्द होता है मैम, दर्द होता है.
You are a boy, you are talking about injection से दर्द होता है. Injection is nothing, it's just a small prick. So think about people who go through some major fall accident जो होते हैं, surgeries जो होते हैं.
प्लास्टिक सर्जरी का
They will cut out portion, scrap out portion from your body and graft it with the skin from other parts of the body or from some other अपने body का भी tissue except नहीं होता, then from some other body. Okay. Now, when we talk about, let us complete with this concept. Why dialysis happens and what is the concept of dialysis? The blood is always taken from the artery. Remember the name. It is taken out from an artery known as the radial artery. Where is the radial artery? It is in the arm. The radial artery, so it is taken out from the arm and the blood will be allowed to run in this set of tubes. As the blood runs in this set of tubes, what is supposed to happen to the blood? What is expected is, these tubes that I have named as the dialyzing tubes, they more or less are made with such type of these are artificial tubes, synthetic tubes hoti hai. These are tubes which are made with certain type of porous conditions or permeability so that they can allow the movement of urea, uric acid. तो उसी particular texture से उनको बनाया जाता है artificially So as the blood is moving in these tubes, what is getting filtered? Only the urea, uric acid is getting filtered. What is getting filtered from the blood through these tubes? Only urea, uric acid, a whole lot of potassium ions. जो toxic है, only those components are getting filtered and getting dissolved in this fluid. What is this fluid? The dialyzing solution. But now, if this particular process, now say suppose I understand that when this dialysis is happening, ये जो urea, uric acid getting dissolved constantly, should this solution remain the same for 8 hours? Can this solution remain the same for 8 hours? No, because if the concentration of urea now increases in the solution, it will start going back to the blood. Are you following? So, for a particular period of time, say suppose this process has to go on for 6 hours. So, how many times will this solution be changed? Almost about every 1 to 2 hours, the solution will be changed. What is the need for changing the solution? The concentration of urea in the solution should not be high. अब ऐसे ही अगर 4 घंटे 5 घंटे रखा जाएगा, then after some time फिर से वापस ब्लड में चला जाएगा. So ये नहीं होने देना है. So this dialyzing solution has to be drained out and fresh solution has to be inserted. देखो वहाँ पे in that diagram also, in those bottles can you see the dialyzing solution is drained out, थोड़ा थोड़ा करके drain out किया जाता है after some time, and fresh solution यहाँ पे फिर से insert किया जाता है. Why? So that
process has any after effects.
Harmful effects at after effects, of course, after effects, because the blood pressure काफी बार immediately drop हो जाता है for that person, क्योंकि blood जैसे जैसे बाहर आ रहा है, just can you imagine the blood is coming out, so every minute the blood in that individual's body is quite less, the pressure is much less. Blood pressure less, on top of that the person is already suffering from so many other diseases, many after effects. So now, after the process of filtration, now what? The blood will again be going back to the vein of the hand. Again, it will be given back to the vein in the hand, in the same region of the body. It will enter into the vein. So, can you now tell me, ये जो tube है, इसका जो features है, it is same like ECT or PCT or Ulfa family? ECT. ये जो tubes बनते हैं, the tubes are made something with the permeability of the DCT so that they can throw away the urea, uric acid, potassium, etc. There's a short paragraph, those of you have the textbook or even the volume. When we talk about the excretion in the plants, now excretion in the plants not at all an elaborate topic for you to study, just a small paragraph you have, and that is very general to understand. What type of excretory products does the plant give rise to? Excretory product, if I have to mention, the plant gives rise to excretory substances. Number one, oxygen is also an excretory substance for the plant, remember. How does the plant give away oxygen? By the process of photosynthesis. And what would be the structures involved to release the oxygen out from the leaves? Stomata. So that is one that we will mention. Those of you have the volume, you may tick that paragraph. Then at the same time, what are the other excretory substances? There are some chemicals, just remember some names. Calcium oxalate, you have to remember that name. It's mentioned in your volume also in your book. Calcium oxalate, one of the most common excretory substance which is present in the seeds of the fruits, flowers, etc. And what is the method that the plant throws away the waste? By the shedding of the leaf, by the shedding of the flower, fruit, leaf, the process of excretion. So only those 2-3 points read from the volume straight away. Transpiration
Ma'am, may I go to washroom?
सब देख चुका है इसमें
इससे मार देंगे ऑल बैट्स
मैं वापस आधे घंटे बाद
All back.
चाचू 3 बार आपको तीनों नाम से बुलाया गया